Francisco d'Ancona.
Watching, we know you.
Assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, assalatu wassalam ala Rasul al-Kareem, amma ba'd. Welcome to Face to Face with me, Azad Ali. This week in the news, topical, I'm sure you've all been talking about it, is about Shamima Begum, a 15-year-old Bangladeshi girl who left from Tower Hamlets and went to Syria, joined ISIS. She's 19 now. She's in that time had 3 children, 2 of them who've passed away and a baby boy that's recently been born. She's in a refugee camp in Al-Hawl, just on the border of Syria, Iraq. And she's hit the headlines, to say the least. So we want to discuss about Shamima and this idea that, you know, she's been made stateless. So to talk about this, in the studio with me is Basharat Ali, a lawyer and commentator. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and assalamu alaikum to everybody at home.
Jazakallah khair for joining us. So, let's start with the whole background of Shamima. She was young, 15-year-old. She went abroad. She used her sister's passport to travel and everything else. Joined ISIS, and now she wants to come home.
Well, look, we have to start with a child. Children have a special and a unique position in any society, which is civilized and which values decency. Shamima was a victim, like the victims, for example, of the grooming in Rotherham, by people who wanted to take advantage for their own benefit. And let's face it, when we were all 15 years of age, we were all impressionable in our own ways. And Shamima was on the radar before she left the country. So let's look at the people who failed her first before we look at her plight. The police failed her.
What in
the
what
social
way did
services,
they do?
because a letter was sent home via the girls to her parents. Now, if you've identified children or a child that's at risk of potentially leaving the country or being under the influence of people like ISIS, who we'll get to in a moment, it was imperative that these children were protected from themselves, because they posed a danger to themselves first and foremost, her and her 2 friends. So the social services potentially failed. The prevent policy potentially failed, because if the girls were known to the authorities, and of course it's not the job of the authorities to bring up children, it is the job of parents, but the state has its responsibility. And these were young girls who were very impressionable, clearly. So they were seduced by the propaganda of ISIS, like many others.
She actually says in one of the interviews, it's nothing like the propaganda videos. So
she accepted once she got there. Equally, you know, when these young girls and drugs mules, for example, they're seduced by money, by glamour, by fame.
Isn't it? I hear you, but there are a lot of people saying, okay, you know what? It's easy to play the victim card.
No, I'm not playing the victim card here.
No, for Shamima, like, you know, that, you know, she was groomed and everything else. She knew what she was doing. She wanted to do this. So why should we bring her back?
We say this, when you start from the correct premise, if children are not able to make their own decisions, fast forward 3.5 years, it is highly, in my opinion, unethical for a journalist to turn up at a camp when this girl is just about to give birth to a child, having had 2 miscarriages. Obviously neither you or I are a woman, but the physiological impacts of when women are going through the latter stages just prior to childbirth are factors which are relevant. This is a girl that has lived, and of course we condemn in the absolute terms. Islamic State does not represent anything Islamic, and we'll come to that in a moment. But she's lived in this environment where she's been effectively, one would assume, told all the great and good things about these people. And then she comes into this camp having had 2 either children who died or miscarriages, whatever it is. And she's being interviewed before she gives birth. And by the state of that place, I can't imagine it looks anything like even the worst of hospitals you have in London, with the NHS going through what it is. And then she's got a newborn child, a baby in arms, and she's being interviewed by this journalist. She is somebody who, like any other victim of grooming or abuse, and she was abused. Under the law of this country, she was subject to statutory rape. She got married at the age of 15, because she's not able to give consent until she's 16. And then she's been living in this bubble. And by any view, until she's examined by doctors, we won't know the full extent of what may have happened, PTSD and so on. And I'm not apologising for her.
Yeah.
She's clearly done things wrong. She's clearly made
But
mistakes.
she's not really showing remorse, though, is she?
Well, now let's get on to the next step. So once you find this child, this trickle feeding of this stuff to a baying mob with the pitchforks and the torches coming out looking for people is she's this, she's that. And of course, the next step here is that the conflation of Islamic State with Islam, it is, trying to link King Herod and the good thing for children. It doesn't work. The issue here is that Islamic State were a perversion of the concept of Islam. They literally came from outside, took over land that didn't belong theirs, and they oppressed Muslims as well as non-Muslims. They didn't quite really care who you were.
Well, they've killed more Muslims than anyone.
Quite precisely that. So they are criminals, whichever way you look at it. So when this girl comes out of this environment and people are seeing this child who, to me, she looks detached from reality. Although part of the interview that they had with her was, I think she said words to the effect, they didn't deserve victory or they didn't deserve to succeed. I.e. that she saw the brutality of what they were doing, the oppressiveness of what they were doing, the sheer, how can I put it, the harshness of everything that is not Islam. Twisted, they've literally slandered Islam and Muslims, and as you said, killed scores of Muslims, much more or many more than non-Muslim people. There's no distinction to be made here. Killing any human being in Islam is like you kill all of humanity without justice. So I think the context here is any abused child needs to be debriefed, to be assisted, to understand what they went through. And of course, if she has done something wrong, committed a criminal act, she's subject to the law. I'm not here trying to defend any wrong she may have done, but put it in a context. The laws regarding even the prosecution of children in this country are special to children.
So I mean, you're saying this, and you are making sense, and it's logical and everything else. But I've heard lots of voices in the Muslim community, and many well-known Muslim, either celebrity or everything else, saying like, she's made her bed, she should lie in it. She decided to go there. We don't want her back. That kind of sentiment.
I understand that, and the job of sensible, mature, level-headed people is to help those who have made mistakes, who've done things wrong. She was born in this country. She's a citizen of this country. This country extradites criminals from around the world, convicts them, puts them in prisons, then monitors them. Gary Glitter, Gad, his surname, is a musician who went around the world abusing children. I think they caught him in Thailand eventually. He came back, he went to prison, and that cost people money. Child abuse and paedophilia is probably amongst the worst crimes because of the vulnerability of children who are abused. We don't talk about that and say, oh, well, he's not our problem. He committed offences in Thailand. He should stay there. No.
But some might say, okay, these aren't the same levels of crime. I mean, here, yes, it is a heinous crime, but it's not as worse as joining this death cult, if you like.
Well, look, let's accept that ISIS is a terrorist organization, you can say, or an organization which has committed numerous abuses. There are many organizations around the world that do that. And again, there's no dignity in trying to see which is worse than the other. Ultimately, you take a judgment on this that what they were about was very bad. If she was an adult that did that, somebody who was fully aware, clearly I wouldn't have as much sympathy. The issue of stripping somebody of citizenship is a matter of principle. We'll come to that in a moment, because that's completely detached from this. But once you recognize a child who, and as one non-Muslim lady put it, when the girls in Rotherham were groomed, it was a fault of the men that groomed them, even though people neglected them. And of course, those that groomed them were vile, absolutely unforgivable what they did. And we're not here to blame the girls. The girls were the victims, quite rightly, and nobody in their right mind would say those young children who were plied with drugs and alcohol. Here, these girls were fed a manipulated, a warped, un-Islamic understanding of Islam to convince them. They played on their vulnerability. And in my, for what it's worth, my opinion that, look, the issue comes back to they joined. And if they committed crimes, punish them.
Well, isn't that like bringing the problem back home?
No, it's not.
This is what the argument. Like, you know, why should we bring her back home? She's gonna brainwash other people. She's gonna radicalize other people. She's a cost. She's a burden. You know, look, she quite clearly made the choice to leave the country.
Yes, she did.
Why should we bring her back?
Right. Whether, and in this case, Shamima Begum, it could be, you know, Sharon or Tracy or Dave or, you know, Samuel. It wouldn't matter to me the color of this woman or the belief or the gender. The issue here comes to this. She is a citizen of this state. If the argument is we shouldn't bring people back, why does the British government extradite people from around the world and brings them back to be tried in the courts, to be locked up in high security prisons, to be then monitored?
But maybe some of that is because the crimes are committed here. Maybe the crime is committed somewhere else,
well,
perhaps?
She may well have committed crimes here. So the principle you can't detach from citizenship.
Right.
Now, this is what I want to really get onto, because the nuts and bolts of this is not Shamima Begum. Shamima Begum is an example. There's a far greater issue here, one which everybody should be worried about, Muslim or non-Muslim, man or woman, it's child or adult, that when the executive takes power to strip citizens of their right as a citizen and right to return to this country, it can affect and will affect people in years to come who will think, oh my God, if only I'd realized. Because
I mean, that issue is, and I do want to actually discuss it. We are coming up to break. Just final point on you know, her vulnerability and everything else. Does she not have any blame?
Of course, there is some blame that she must carry. But look, ultimately, the issue one here is the law is there to punish for criminality, which is proportionate to the crime committed.
Right.
Other than the fact that she was enticed as a child to go out there, and yes, she made her preparations. We know there were people on the internet telling them how to do things and so on. It's not a secret.
Okay.
So to the extent that she committed crimes, she'll be tried.
Okay. All right. On that point, we're just going to take a short break, inshallah. We'll be back after these short adverts. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum. So just before the break, Basharat, you raised the issue about citizenship and its kind of revocation or deprivation, if you like. So the Home Secretary Sajid Javid did rescind her citizenship, and he did it on the basis that, you know, she's likely to or she's able to get another country's citizenship, which is Bangladesh. Now, since then, Bangladesh has issued a statement saying, no, you know, she's not a citizen of our country, she's not applied for it, we're not giving it to her, and she's got nothing to do with us. She's a British citizen, you need to deal with it. It's a bit of a mess.
Well, I'll tell you what's a bigger mess. The irony, you couldn't make it up, that the bus driver's son from Rochdale, who happens to be of Pakistani origin, in fact, he could be deprived of his British citizenship himself because his father was a Pakistani.
Right.
And that emphasizes the point that there is a two-tier citizenship. One for those who are real British people, not of immigrant stock, and others who have come, either their parents arrived in the 50s or 60s or before, who were born to parents who were either born abroad or dual nationals. And it really brings out the worst in a supremacist mindset.
Right.
Either citizenship has value and every citizen is equal before the law, or you will have two-tier citizenship. Because if you are going to go down this road, it tells us all of those people, Muslim or non-Muslim or from immigrant stock, that actually you're not the same as us.
Yeah, I mean, I was just tracking comments on social media and other outlets and everything else, and I mean, there seems to be a almost like a 50-50 split, if you like. So on the one hand, there are people who were happy with the decision that the Home Secretary has made, that, you know, it's right. She shouldn't have anything to do with us. She can go wherever she wants. You know, we washed her hands of it, and they tend to be more people who are on the right, if you like, and their argument is she's made her bed and she's lied in it. Okay. And then on this side, there are people that are saying exactly what you said. It's like, you know, you need to look at the bigger picture. It's got nothing to do with her. So what you have is a piece of legislation here that is actually created a two-tier citizenship, because some people is affected by it and others aren't.
Well, look, when you start determining citizenship on the basis of where you come from or where your parents came from, it's a bad place to be.
Right.
That's one point. Secondly, conducive to the public good, which is the basis upon which Sajid Javed has taken this action. Today, it is this girl. Tomorrow, it might be left-wing extreme socialists. Tomorrow, it might be right-wing extreme right-wing people. And then who else? You know, I've used this example before, but you know, when the Nazis were persecuting Jews and Gypsies, it's a very famous poem written by a man called Pastor Martin Niemöller. So first they came for the communists. I did not speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the trade unionist. I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was nobody else left to speak. In other words, this selfish, almost, you know, me, myself, and I mindset, it will come back and haunt people. And there's a very interesting case where, when they were passing this fast-track extradition between the US and the UK, so it's only going to be for serious criminals. And when these middle-class bankers were being extradited, and this kid with Asperger's or some sort of disorder, people start saying, "Oh my God, this can't be right." In other words, today it's this girl in some camp. Tomorrow it could be you. And in my opinion, any sensible person would be very worried.
Can I just ask on the whole? Okay, I mean, let's leave Shamima Begum out for a minute. Let's just discuss this whole issue about taking away someone's citizenship. Do you agree with the concept at all? Is there any, under any circumstances, that can apply?
In my opinion, no. Because if you're going to have citizenship as representing that you are equal to everybody else in the land, then it must be one for all and all for one. There's no picking and choosing. And you know the hypocrisy of this. There's a man who goes by the name Mesa Gifford. He also went to Syria. He fought with a Kurdish nationalist outfit called the YPG. Now the YPG is not prescribed in this country, but it's widely reported that it has some links to the PKK, because Kurds in Iraq, in Syria, in Iran, and in Turkey are fighting for a Kurdish homeland. And he fought, he went out, and I don't doubt the fact that he saw the suffering of some of the people at the hands of people like ISIS, and he was moved to go and defend it. It's a noble thing to do, that anybody should go and fight. He's a white, middle-class, non-Muslim man who was a banker. He wasn't prosecuted when he came back. He's not somebody who's been charged. Nobody's talking about taking his citizenship away from him. I don't think he is dual national. And if he can go out and fight for oppressed Kurds, and clearly ISIS were killing everyone, Kurds, Muslims, the women on the mountain. So if Muslim aid workers are going to Syria, and many of them have been stripped of their citizenship, or Muslims who were not going to join ISIS because they felt that they needed to do something to help oppressed people, why the difference in treatment? Why the difference in treatment?
Well, I mean, maybe one thing could be is, like you said, is they can't take his citizenship away because he doesn't have, he can't be a citizen of another country.
No, but
whereas these people can. So it's using whatever tools available.
I'll give you, but the point here is that look at the difference of treatment. He's British, they're British. Hence, brown Brits and black Brits and yellow Brits and funny tinged Brits are not people who are worthy of the same respect and tolerance and recognition as a white Brit. By sheer fact of you did not choose who your parents were. So if you're British at birth and Mesa is British at birth, or me or whoever else, then hold on a second.
Why the
disparity of treatment? This is the problem. And look, there's a far more fundamental problem here. In Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom, everybody born in Northern Ireland is entitled to Irish and British citizenship as a matter of law. They're all dual nationals. Have you heard of any British Irish terrorist being deprived of his or her citizenship?
No, not really.
I wonder why. Because
you make a very valid point.
They've declared war on this country. No bigger criminal offence than declaring war on your own country. Many of them have been committed of lesser terrorism offences, but terrorism comes under various terrorism acts. And if none of them nobody's even talked about it, and rightly so, by the way. I wouldn't want them to lose their citizenship. So ask the question to test the proposition that people who are dual nationals whose actions are harmful to the United Kingdom and the Northern Ireland.
Why hasn't it happened to
Why
them?
didn't it happen?
Okay.
And why isn't
No,
it
no,
happening?
I think you've made that point very well. Just moving it on a little bit. Okay, so citizen deprivation, two-tier system, not a good idea, not a bad idea, and everything else. But isn't there something needed to kind of stop this kind of activity from taking place, from people joining terrorist organizations? So there's a conversation in Parliament today, actually, about reviving the Treason Act and everything else. Is that the way to go?
Well, look, the Treason Act will be basically, depending on how they frame it, potentially will prosecute people for betraying this country, i.e. going and joining an enemy army or militia or whatever. We'll see the issue of the law. Whatever, any laws, if they're just, first of all, and if they're applied uniformly and fairly, you know what, if you live in a land, you go with that.
Yeah.
As long as the law is just and it's fair. A lot of the terrorism legislation is not just.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's another example. Many British citizens go and fight in the Israeli Defence Forces. Now, not every person who fights in the Israeli Defence Force goes around killing innocent people. Many innocent people have been killed by people who fought in the Israeli Defence Force. Are any of them challenged for their citizenship when they return?
Yeah.
If they're not, why not?
So it seems like, I mean, you have the law and then you have political decisions that get...
That's the nub of this.
Yeah.
Because it's the politics. Sajid Javid, if you read most well-informed commentators, believe this is a cynical ploy to position himself as a potential candidate whenever they all end up stabbing Theresa May in the back or in the front.
So it's more showmanship and looking tough on terrorism
and she's an easy target.
Like that.
She's a child in a camp in Syria. The media have run the chorus with all of the right-wing people pushing and egging the baying mob with the pitchforks, and therefore she's an easy target. You know, at the end of the day, I wouldn't want him to do it to anyone, because the rule is, if people commit crimes and they're your citizen, they're your problem. She was groomed in this country, but very likely, potentially from abroad as well, and therefore she should answer for her crimes here. If, excuse me, the law is fairly and justly to be applied by everyone. There's a reason why Old Justice on top of the Old Bailey wears a blindfold. Not your colour of your skin, your wealth, your age should be irrelevant to justice. Justice is given on the basis of the evidence presented and the crime that you're alleged to have committed.
Okay. I mean, we've come to the end of the show. Just in your kind of final comments, in terms of Shamima Begum, what would you like to see? What do you think will be fair, ethical, and balanced in this situation?
Look, I have a very principled position on this. She should be allowed to come back to this country, and the law should take its course. It's very simple. I'm not going to shed tears if she's punished for any crimes that she has committed where the evidence is there. But I am very troubled by the fact that she is being abandoned by the country of her birth and citizenship. And I don't defend what she did. I don't defend the people that she went to join. They are not people representative of Islam. What she did is not Islamic. Absolutely. And it's not something anybody would want to defend. I should make that clear. But the bottom line is this. Civilized and tolerant societies who base themselves on justice cannot but demand that she's allowed to come back to this country with her newborn child who is innocent.
Okay. Well, Jazakallah khair. We've come to the end, and join us again next week. I think we will carry on discussions along this line. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Take care all.
Eman Channel. We know you.